Growing through acquisition. That's what today's episode's all about, of Build with a Plan with Coach David here. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And what I want to talk about again is it time to grow your business through acquisition? What does that mean? What is acquisition? Basically that is buying another business, right? So, it's not for everybody. But I think this is now the time to be looking at buying a business. For me, it's a prime time to look because there are a lot of baby boomers out there that are getting ready to retire. And they typically have had the business running a long time and they've been family owned. So the reputation is generally there. Now, potentially they are harder to evaluate, but they could have a great upside. Again, like I was saying, great reputation, businesses have been around for a long time, but on the flip side of it, chances are processes aren't in place, marketing's not there, the hierarchy of the business probably is not set up, like the org chart, like who's in charge of what, that type of stuff. But the great upside to that is depending on the business and how it's set up right now, there could be a huge potential to take on the business. And also potentially, broker that's going to potentially drive up the price, interfere in that way from the seller's point of view. But you must, if you're going to go with no broker, you must have a lawyer. That is a must. You cannot do it. You can do it without it, but you're really risking a lot by doing it that way. And the other must-have is an accountant. And I wouldn't suggest you bring on your regular accountant. You need to bring on a forensic accountant, one who understands exactly what's going on. Because it's very important to know, what the numbers really mean. You need to go back 3 years, hopefully 5 years, if you can get that from the business owner, so you can see how you're trending with the business. All right, so what are the few steps you need to understand? Well, you need to find the business. You need to evaluate its condition. You need to understand what the potential of the business is. Then you have to negotiate the purchase price. And once you've kind of on that same page there, then you do what's called due diligence. Because, initially in the beginning, you're given their numbers, they give you their package or whatever it is that they're presenting to you. So up until the purchase price point of it, you're kind of going on face value of what they're showing you. So the conducting the due diligence, that's when you bring in the accountant who really knows what they're doing. Do a deep dive into all the numbers, contact the banks, I would contact suppliers, and even some clients if necessary. But you want to make sure you understand where the business is at and where it's trending. And then once you've satisfied with the due diligence part of the process, now you have to look at securing financing. Now, is that something that you have already? Are you going to your bank? Are you going to an independent bank? How is that happening? And then after that, once you've figured out and secured the financing, then it's completing the transaction. And then the transformation from where the old ownership to the new ownership. That could be an easy transition depending on how you've set it up. Do you have the old owners on for 6 months? Sometimes it could be up to 2 years, depending on the size of the business, the complexity on which the owner is part of the business. Again, though, if they're a baby boomer and they want to get out of the business, if you can get 6 months out of it, you would be lucky. All right, so when you are looking at acquisition, what should you be looking at? Well, there are really, 4 different ways or different aspects that you can look at about growing through acquisition. You could look at acquiring a competitor of yours. Someone either smaller, typically if they're bigger, they might be a little bit harder to acquire. They might be looking at acquire to you, but maybe in that case, don't look at acquisition. Maybe you look at merging with that person or that business to grow together if the values and the vision align. But typically, if you're looking for competition, they're usually smaller than you, or they're ready to get out of the business. You could be also looking at additional services that you're adding to what you are complementary services to what you're already providing, or products that you're already providing. You could also be looking at acquiring a supplier of yours, if that makes sense. Or you could be looking at doing something completely different and bringing in either a brand new product or service to your arsenal of products and services, or a completely different business because it makes sense from a cash flow point of view. Now, okay, you say, okay, that's great. Now I sort of have an idea of what I want to do. How do I find that business? Well, typically, there are three main ways to do that. The first is online directory. It's not completely. It's sorry. The online directory, is not a complete source of all the businesses that are for sale. These are the businesses that typically have a business broker. Maybe you could do some, Facebook or Kijiji. Sometimes there's people list businesses for sale on that, but the online directories are ones that are typically put on there by a business broker. So you know that you're going to be dealing with the broker, not the business owner. Okay? Or the second way of doing it is actually reaching out to a business broker who has a little bit better access to the directories that you can have access to, but they also can maybe have some people that they know that aren't on the directories. Or if there's a specific business that you want to go after, you can do direct contact method. You could reach out to your circle of influence and put it out that you're looking to acquire this type of business. If anyone knows of someone that is potentially looking to sell, then you have that direct contact. But the interesting thing here is that a lot of business owners, when they want to sell, they don't necessarily want their customers to know, or even their staff, because they want to make sure that everyone stays around and helps keep the business running the way that it should. Okay? But the key, in my opinion, to a good deal is understanding where the business is at. So I said, if you don't have a keen sense of numbers, make sure you have that accountant with you. But you should at least, if you're looking to acquire, you should at least have an understanding, a high-level understanding of profit loss and your balance sheet. You should be able to understand that to at least a high level. If you don't, then make sure that you have an accountant that is with you every step of the way. But once you understand where the business is at, that helps you understand the value, what value that business is for you to acquire. But then the flip side is knowing where you can take the business. Where is the potential in this business? Now, it could just be synergy for yourself. If you're buying a competition, you're obviously eliminating someone that's wanting a piece of the pie. You're acquiring new clients, but maybe they also have some proprietary product or service that you can acquire. Or you're just looking at, bringing in some synergies, and then you can start scaling, because you can then, get rid of some of the redundancies between the two. And now you can see the profit margin rising a little bit. But the other thing is, where is the potential? Okay. Are they underutilizing? Like, for example, if you have a really good sales process in your business, and you look at the competition, and the competition, they do a pretty good job, the staff is good, but their sales process is not as refined as yours. So what that typically would mean is that if you, implement your sales process, you're going to be able to change the conversion rate, or up the conversion rate on that new business. So even though it may be doing X right now, the potential is maybe 1.25% more than what you're doing now. So now you're looking at, okay, there's great potential here. They're not utilizing the sale process. Maybe it's a marketing, maybe it's a fulfillment side. If you've got advantages in that, then that's what you can bring to the table, obviously without letting them know, because you want to make sure that you're getting the business, or you're acquiring this business at the right price. But you also need, like I said, you need to understand where you can take that business. Now, if you don't fully understand, if you don't have certain areas of your business that are superior to the business you're looking to acquire, then it's a really good idea to bring in someone like myself that understands different areas of the business that they can look at and see the inefficiencies, see where they're lacking in strategies. And that person, either a consultant or a coach can look at what you're doing. And let me stop you there, or let me stop there. It's not every coach, every consultant that can do what I'm talking about here. These are coaches and consultants that are primarily working on business growth. What strategies can they implement into your business or into the business you're looking to acquire to make sure that they are more profitable? So just to recap, you want to look at finding a business, evaluating its condition and the potential, negotiating the price, conducting the due diligence, and securing financing, and then completing the transaction. Again, make sure that you have an accountant and a lawyer all the way through. Do not attempt to do this on your own unless you've done this many times before. But so that's as far as I'm going to go today. I'll cover financing on another day because that's a whole other animal in itself. There are many different ways to look at financing, but I'll bring on an expert and we will do an interview to make sure that I'm covering all the aspects of that. All right, so if you have any questions, please reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to yourfsmatrix.com, connect with me there. Please like and share if you find this valuable. I don't do any advertising for this podcast, and the only way it can grow is if we are out there sharing it. So if you like, or if you learned something from today's episode or a previous episode, please reach out and share it to a business owner that you think can benefit from what I'm talking about here. All right, so Coach David, signing off for another day. Thank you.